Across myth, religion, and society, one pattern repeats. The structure stays the same. Only the story changes. What began as scattered observations, Greek myths, biblical narratives, Mesopotamian texts, now reveals itself as something far more unified. These were never just stories meant to explain the unknown. They were frameworks, symbolic representations of patterns that continue to exist, not only in ancient texts, but in modern systems, human behavior, and individual experience. When stripped of names, languages, and cultural context, the same sequence emerges again and again. There is always a beginning that is undefined, chaos, potential, the unformed. There is always a force that imposes structure, authority, order, hierarchy. There is always a stage where that structure becomes visible, light, awareness, observation. Humanity enters as something limited, bound by time and experience. Knowledge appears as a turning point, expanding awareness but disrupting stability. Consequence follows, not as punishment, but as the natural result of awareness applied within limitation. Systems strain, collapse, and reset. Something survives, adapts, and continues. A bridge forms connecting what was separated. And finally, transformation occurs the moment where the individual becomes aware of the entire system. This is the cycle. It is not a theory. It is observable. It appears in myth as narrative, in religion as doctrine, in society as structure, and in the individual as experience. The same pattern that describes the rise and fall of civilizations also describes the rise and fall of personal identity. The same structure that governs ancient flood myths appears in modern economic collapses, personal breakdowns, and systemic resets. The same archetypes that once appeared as gods now appear as institutions, behaviors, and psychological patterns. This is why the system holds, because it is not dependent on belief, it is dependent on structure. A person does not need to believe in Zeus for authority to exist. They do not need to believe in Cronus for time to constrain their life. They do not need to believe in the serpent for knowledge to disrupt their perception. These forces are not confined to myth, they are embedded in reality. What mythology did was give them form. What modern systems do is express them functionally, but underneath both, the pattern remains unchanged. This is where the deeper understanding emerges. The realization is not that all myths are secretly connected, or that one story is more true than another. The realization is that human beings consistently organize reality using the same structures, because those structures reflect how reality is experienced. Truth is revealed. Perception interprets it, thought processes it, belief organizes it, value assigns importance, action responds, time constrains, reality forms, and then the cycle repeats. This is happening constantly, internally and externally. A person wakes up, encounters something new, awareness, reacts emotionally, perception, thinks about it, thought, assigns meaning, belief, decides what matters, value, takes action, action, experiences the outcome, reality, and carries that forward into the next moment. At a larger scale, systems do the same. Societies emerge from instability, establish order, expand through knowledge, face consequence, collapse, and rebuild. Different scale, same structure. This is what the system ultimately reveals. Not that reality is random, but that it is patterned. Not that everything is controlled, but that everything operates within structure. Not that individuals are powerless, but that they are often unaware of the patterns they are moving through. And this is where the final shift occurs. Because once the pattern is seen, the system changes, not externally, but in how it is experienced. A person who does not see the pattern moves through it unconsciously. They repeat cycles without recognizing them. They react to outcomes without understanding what produced them. They experience collapse as failure rather than transition. A person who does see the pattern begins to move differently. They recognize where they are within the cycle. They understand what led to that position. They anticipate what comes next, not with certainty, but with awareness. This does not eliminate difficulty. It does not remove consequence. It does not stop the cycle, but it changes the relationship to it. The cycle becomes visible, and once visible, it becomes something that can be engaged with rather than something that simply happens. This is the final insight. The system is not something separate from reality. It is a way of seeing reality as it already is. The structure stays the same. Only the story changes. And once that is understood, the stories no longer divide, they reveal. They become different expressions of the same underlying pattern. A pattern that exists not just in myth or history, but in every moment of lived experience.